I'm going to start a series called Rites of Passage, and these will include everything that I have learned the last 25 years in coming out of a childish culture. Before I get into the rites of passage, I want to talk about this unspoken social agreement of what we call adulthood in this country. I think it's twofold. I think that we have been manipulated by advertising companies and marketing schemes to sell us the idea of what it is to be an adult, specifically what it is to be a man and a woman. All the things that we need to buy to become a woman or a man, and the activities that we have to engage in that also require our money. So we are cash cows for somebody in our pursuit of this American adulthood. But also I think that we as human beings, and I'm not the only one who believes this, but we have an inherent need to avoid reality, that we like to stay in the magical thinking of childhood. And that's why it's so appealing. Anytime someone wants to sell us a fantasy, we'll buy it. So I wanted to talk about this social agreement, and so I just want to share my list. And though this is what we're told adulthood is, this is not what adulthood is. So I'm just going to start there, and then we can proceed in further videos. So the first thing, what it is to not be an adult. Having an opinion does not make you an adult. Americans in the last years, I've noticed, have become extremely opinionated on every subject. Whether they have real life experience, whether they have real historical understanding or evidence of any kind, they'll just take something they hear online and go, oh yeah, this is the truth now, this is how it is. So everyone has an opinion, but that doesn't make you an adult. And with that opinion has become more and more of this argumentative debate forum, and it has sprung up all over the internet. And I have watched so many debates, and at first I was thrilled because I enjoyed listening to logical people make sense of things and refute any falsehood. And these are really valuable platforms for a society, especially in the political environment or dealing with ethical matters, to find out what's true. So you take two parties and you allow them to make sense of things, and it can be very helpful to us. But what I found over the course of time watching these debates, especially these young conservative men, it's becoming wearisome to me. It's not simply about the truth or facts or coming to some logical agreement about something. It's about crushing people and slamming them and humiliating them and trying to catch people in errors in a way that I see is just becoming really arrogant and cocky. And I can't watch the debates anymore. They've just kind of spun out of control, and they don't seem to be constructive at this point. So just because you can debate and argue and even win a debate with fierce logic, it doesn't make you an adult. It could be an aspect of a mature adult, but it doesn't make you an adult. Then, of course, I have to address this issue with sex. Having sex does not make you an adult. There's a lot I could say about this, but most of the sex that I see happening is promiscuous. It's adulterous. It's indecent. It's not appropriate for a civilized society. If we want to continue as a civilization, you have to procreate, and you have to procreate in a way where you're wanting to create healthy, sound, high-functioning, hard-working citizens. It's not a matter of having sex with whomever you want, whenever you want, and relying on abortion to clean up your mess and not expecting there to be consequences to any of it. So having sex does not make you an adult. Watching pornography does not make you an adult. Those are very big lies, I do believe, are told to men, that if you watch this and if you do these things, this makes you a man. And that is a lie. It makes you more like a societal deviant, a societal nemesis, a nuisance, and you are bringing more trouble to society than you are worth. You're causing problems that are greatly damaging, and someone's going to have to pay for it somewhere along the lines. Also, the clothing we wear, we're told, like men are told, if you wear a suit and tie, this makes you a man. Or some men, if you wear a leather jacket, this makes you a man. Or if you wear big boots, it makes you a man. Or whatever. But for women especially, it's about wearing spandex. The tighter, the shorter, the smaller, the more revealing, that supposedly makes you an adult. It makes you a woman. And if you know enough about prostitution, it just makes you look like a prostitute. It makes you look like you're promoting sex as your job. And sadly, that's promoted for women, and especially makeup. I mean, the makeup commercials and the hair commercials are rampant. And young girls now are thinking, they're looking to older women like, what do I do to be a woman? So now they're getting into getting their hair done and their nails and their makeup. And, at 10 years old, these girls are investing in big money cosmetics because they think this makes them an adult. It doesn't make them adult. Again, it makes them a part of this prostituting spirit where you look like you're promoting sex, and that is not what it is to be a woman and or to be an adult. That just is to be a harlot, wasting your time screwing around while all kinds of necessary jobs are going undone because you're too busy screwing around in a bedroom with another pervert. So that's not helpful. It's not adulthood at all. The next thing is a college degree. Having a college degree does not make you an adult. It means you took a lot of classes, you paid a lot of tuition, and you paid a lot of parking fees. And you got knowledge in your head, but you didn't necessarily develop any of the necessary skill sets or pass through the rites of passage to become a true, functioning, useful adult. Unfortunately, a lot of college students have just become arrogant, more arrogant than they already were, because now they have some knowledge that's not necessarily based in reality or even real history, and they act like they know everything. And that's annoying. So a college degree does not make you an adult, nor does having a big career and making a lot of money. Though that can really give an appearance that you are an adult because we value hard work in this culture. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're actually an adult through and through. A lot of people are workaholics, so they use work as an escape, and they never deal with reality. They don't deal with the real issues, the losses in their life, the grief in their life, developing their character. They just work, make a lot of money, and think that they're better than all of the slackers that aren't working or nor have a home or a car or the nice new things that they have. But I think that's probably one of the biggest lies of our consumer culture, is that if you work really hard and you make a lot of money and buy a lot of stuff, that makes you an adult. And that is not true. So of course, owning a home and anything that you own, RV or whatever, traveling multiple homes around the world, it doesn't make you an adult. It most likely makes you an imbalanced person with a workaholic addiction, or you just were in a line of business that made a lot of money, and so you had a lot of money to spend. Also, I don't believe that being a Republican or a conservative makes you an adult. And I do see these factions are claiming that Republicans are the more mature, sane, adult, hardworking, taxpayer political group, and then the left are kind of the lazy, the slackers, the welfare junkies, the immature, kind of the illogical, not, insane people not in reality about basic biology and stuff. And we could probably debate through that and go, yeah, there's some truth to these statements, but ultimately being a Republican and being a conservative does not necessarily make you an adult. Because again, to be an adult, you have to be in reality. And a lot of people in these different political views like to say we're going to make America great again simply through an economic shift, trying to generate more money for people. That is not going to make America great. The only way we're going to make America great is through virtue, is through morality. And I don't I don't know everyone's personal life in the Republican world, but I'm not convinced that they are without addiction, without their own secret sin, and ultimately they can possibly be very selfish, and they don't want to give a dime to the freeloaders, not understanding that there are some people who really do need charity. So that requires discernment. But anyway, I don't believe that being a Republican or conservative makes you an adult, because you can still be very detached from the deeper spiritual and emotional needs of a human being, and still be an awful parent and not know how to care for your children properly, even though you hold these beliefs. I have been in an environment of a man. He was a Republican and a conservative and a constitutionalist, and he supported an individual on the property I was living on to take away every single right that I had. And they became criminals and breaking civil codes all over the place. So just because he was a Republican and a conservative and a Christian who listened to Dr. McGee at 1 o'clock in the afternoon every day, he was not an adult. He was a narcissistic, self-will, run amok, and completely detached from reality. So I have personal experience with that. Also, getting married does not make you an adult. It's certainly a better choice than screwing around and being irresponsible that way. But there are a lot of people that get married out of selfish reasons. They do not have any ground in reality. They're expecting the other person to save them, be the perfect wife or perfect husband, and they end up resenting them very much because they were entering marriage like you do in buying a new car. It's just what you want for yourself, and you're being completely self-centered. And sadly, so many marriages end in divorce because of the selfish nature, the childish nature of entering into this institution. It doesn't make the institution wrong. It just means that the people entering into it had very unreal expectations about what it was going to do for them, and they didn't want to contribute in any real sacrificial way. And then for many of you, you may disagree, but I know many of you will agree that going to church does not make you an adult. Sadly, I know far too many narcissists in the church environment. I think that it attracts them, and I can talk about why I believe that later. But it is an environment where someone who, if they want to be somebody and show up and then have a lot of power, they can just show up, be charismatic, good looking, and smooth talking, pick up the Bible and say, well, God said that, I'm now your leader and I've got an authority and you need to listen to me. And then, of course, we're off to the races with all the control and the cult-like spirit in that environment. So going to church does not make you an adult either. So, yeah, there's a lot here. I would also include watching the news and knowing a lot about political things does not make you an adult. I think that's probably one of the biggest addictions of escapism in our country, is to dive so deeply into the global issues that you avoid the issues of your own personal family, your own personal issues with health or mental health, emotional health, whatever, your own home, your basic practical responsibilities. Yeah, so there's a lot here. None of these things make us an adult, but we're really told, I believed from the commercials and growing up that indeed, if I got a really nice haircut and I could get really rad bangs that had nice feathering in them, and I knew how to do really pretty makeup, and I could kind of pose and posture and walk properly, that I'd be a woman. So if I bought all these things and I added them to my womanhood toolkit, that's what would make me a woman. Never mind, it didn't matter if I had any character, skills, virtue of any kind, any knowledge of how to care for anything. It just mattered how I looked based on the things that I bought, based on the commercials in the movies. And I trust that the men have the entire toolkit that they have to buy into, that if they buy these things, if they have a really rad car or a truck, if they figure out how to make a lot of money and be able to buy a lot of stuff and be super buff and whatever. So we are lied to from the inception of our lives here in America. And so it's important that we break these social agreements and we say, I'm not doing this anymore because this isn't adulthood, and it certainly is not preserving our country. we are a childish culture, and we think that we can buy adulthood, which to me is just another indication of our immaturity, because we would rather buy something which is so easy to do than to actually do the hard labor of the body, soul, and spirit to generate real health and real character, real virtue and maturity, and real results. So I bailed out of that environment, like I said, years ago. And so I hope that you will join me on these rites of passage, that we can really establish a real adulthood for this country, for the preservation of the civilization, and for the sake of the young people who need elders to help them and guide them into the only life worth living, which is a life in reality. All right, I'll talk with you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.